Page 10, Minuet. 3/4 time, well, it's a minuet, makes sense. 2 flats again, we have a B flats and E flats are all flatted. We're in the key of G minor. G minor. Let's check the notes and the fingering and the rhythm. I'm going to take it one hand at a time. I'm just going to connect everything right now. So at the right hand at the beginning. 1, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and go on. 3. I recommend you keep the thumb on the G. Just come over for one note. Stay there. See, sometimes in music, depending on the music and what's coming up, sometimes when you cross over, you'll play 3rd finger then. You'll stay there. But in this piece, keep the thumb, stay here. Then when you repeat, you're in position. And if you go on, you're in position. That's why we want to stay there. Measure 9, just a bunch of B flats. Isn't this fun? And then cross under, C. Don't forget the E flats. And then measure 13. 1 and 2. Now, you see the different fingerings. There's numbers in parentheses, and okay, that's an alternate fingering. What they're telling you is, if you want, it depends on the size of your hands and so forth. I don't know what the so forth is, but whatever. You can either play on measure 13, you can play the first note with 4th finger or 5th finger. And if you use 5th finger, then you're going to use the thumb on the B flat. Here. If you use 4th finger, you're going to use the 2nd finger on the B flat. You're going to cross over. Now if you have really big hands and fat fingers, then you need the 4th finger and cross over. Just to avoid having to come up in here. If you got little bitty hands, then 5th finger works well. Because you're going to stay there. The next measure is the same thing. And then you reach up for the next measure. Here. Now, even if on measure 13, even if you do use the 4th finger and cross over, go ahead and use 5th finger like they're saying. But if you don't want to use 5th finger, then you need to scrunch up and use 3rd finger on the E flat. So you can do that. Just skip the finger so you can do that. Otherwise, you got to use thumb on that. And that's fine if you want to do that, because the next note is a G, but if you have big hands, you can reach that. So it doesn't matter. It's up to you on how you finger that. Left hand at the beginning. We're in this position, but we're going to start with crossing over here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, then thumb. And that's tied. So it's, again, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Remember, the F sharp is good for the rest of the measure, and the E natural is good. Well, you only have one E, so it doesn't matter. But both of those Fs are sharped. And then you just have to lift up and move because it's a big one. Big hands, you might reach it, but there's no point. Just lift up and move. And you do that same thing. Thumb, and then 3rd finger is fine, or 4th, whichever. But we need thumb on the D. So 4th, go on to measure 9. You just reach up. It's an octave. And now we're just going down the scale here. Thumb. So 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. Rest, 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 and thumb. Cross over the thumb, I meant. Put the hands together here, slowly. The thumb here. Measure 9. It's nice when you have repeated notes if the other hand can keep you entertained, and this does. The left hand is fine. Now let's put some slurs and staccatos and things or whatever's going on, I don't know, here. In the left hand, if there isn't anything marked for now, just go ahead and connect it. So we're going to connect hands, lift hip. Lift up at the end of the line, both hands. Lift up. This is kind of nice when they lift together. It makes it a little easier. Measure 9, just connect this as best you can. Not a lot going on in articulation. I can offer some other articulations, but let's just go with this. If you have a teacher, they may offer other things. It's like on measure 4 in the left hand. You can disconnect those. When their notes are that far apart, you can disconnect them. It's part of the style. You don't have to connect them all that. I would do that, if you're going to do that, you do that pretty much anywhere the notes are more than an interval of a second. If they're next to each other, you connect them. If they're further apart, you can disconnect them, but not always. You have to, depends on the music. But for the purpose of this lesson, I'm going to go ahead and just connect them. Now, you have a repeat sign at the end of the second line, so you play both those twice. There's a DC Alfini at the bottom, which means you're going to go back to the beginning, DC. And the Fini is at the end of the second line, so you just play those 2 lines again. Dynamic-wise, well, whatever you think moderately loud is, that's the right hand. Measure 9, you're starting at soft and you're going to go up to loud, but you don't get loud until measure 13. So it's like measure 9 or so per measure and a half stay the same. Soft, a little louder, moderately loud. Now you're loud. So you got the 4 measures to go from soft to loud, and you have to span it out, or you'll be loud by measure 10. So you don't have to get loud constantly. It's like a measure or 2 at a time, and save most up for the end. Most of this there is where we want to hear crescendo in there. So hold back on your crescendo until more toward the end of that. Then at the end, the last 2 measures, you come back down to about a moderately soft. Or moderately loud. It's up to you. It's up to you. Experiment with it and see. Because when you go back to the top, you're moderately loud again. Speed-wise, allegretto's between moderato and allegro, whatever those are. And where do you feel it? It's the feel of the piece. Now, toward the end there, the last couple measures before the Fine, this would be measures 7 and 8 here. After you've done the DC and you come back and you're finishing the piece, you might have a tendency to want to retard a little bit. Because a lot of times that was kind of, it wouldn't be written in, it would be up to the performer in interpreting the music to know that. The problem with this particular piece is it's a minuet. And this is something that people can dance to. And if they're dancing to it, I don't recommend slowing down. You keep the same speed on this for the sake of the dancers. Yeah, otherwise it could mess them up. But on other types of music that people aren't necessarily moving to, dancing to, then I would add a retardando on that. I'd like to play it with you very slowly to double check the notes and the rhythms. Not going to do any dynamics. I will do the DC Alfine and I will do the repeat. So I'll give us 3 counts. Let's just go over it slowly together. 1, ready, go. One, 2, to the top. Two, three, off.